Hi, this is Tom Cook, and you're listening to the FSF Popcast.
The show that is forever worried that the erasers of our animator friends will one day be pointed our way. We're surprised it hasn't happened yet, if we're being honest.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 1981. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and joins the crew of the Enterprise in their struggle against Skeletor and his henchmen, he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope. Because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back, and what's left of the Power Sword.
All right, guys, we are so happy to welcome a renowned animator, director, and producer of animation. You've seen his work on He-Man, She-Ra, Scooby Doo, Brave Star, one of my all-time favorites, Thundarr the Barbarian. If you've slept on Thundarr the Barbarian growing up, go back and watch it. It's an amazing Hanna-Barbera production and lots of fun. So kids and cadets, we are excited to welcome Thomas Cook to the FSF Podcast. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you very much.
We're a little excited.
I'm a whole lot excited. Are you kidding me? Yeah, we met Tom at the Monroe Pop Fest in Monroe, Michigan back this past September. And so Tom and I have been Facebook friends for a while, but it was our first chance meeting in person. And I was pretty excited to meet him in person because it's safe to say that he's responsible in one way or another for a large portion of the awesomeness that was my childhood when it came to animated shows. You know, we talked about some of the things in the title, the introduction. I'll get it right sooner or later, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Probably.
I'm not going to criticize.
Yeah, please don't. I can't take it. No. But, you know, there was all the shows that we mentioned there. And I remember watching a lot of the Hanna-Barbera era shows and just absolutely loving them. And I thought Thundarr the Barbarian was great. It was a great show. I really enjoyed it. So thank you, first and foremost, before we get into anything else in the show, thank you for helping making my childhood so awesome and having these great shows to watch. And I know that you were a part of those in one way or another, whether you were animator or whatever else it was.
I do hear that a lot. The word childhood comes up all the time. And, you know, I had a childhood too, and my childhood was filled with Saturday morning cartoons as well. So I definitely understand where you're coming from because I lived that same thing as a kid.
Awesome. So that actually perfectly leads me into my question. So thank you. I really like to know what makes people tick, you know, how they got to where they are, how they became who they are, and all these different things. So in your younger years, Tom, what are the things that influenced you? What were the influences around you that pointed you towards a career in the arts, made you want to be an artist?
Boy, you know, I never ever wanted to be an artist. It all kind of happened accidentally. But what really got me going, because I always drew as a kid. You know, in fifth grade, we had this little cartoon club, and there were like two or three of us that would get together and we just draw little teeny, like sort of panel cartoons, you know, the little gag at the end. And so I loved doing that. But then I also was a big comic book reader. So I used to read a lot of in the 50s because I grew up. I started life in 1952, and so really what was around for me to read was Batman and Superman, Wonder Woman. Justice League wasn't even around yet, and Marvel was timely, and we never really got any of those comics at our store. So I was really unaware of timely at all. But around 1961, so I'm about 9 years old, Marvel Comics started. And me and my friend, my next door neighbor, another Tom, he and I were kind of camping out in the backyard with our tent into the woods, and you know we could still see the house, but we felt like we were out in the wild. We'd sit there at night reading comic books with our flashlights, and he pulled out Amazing Spider-Man #1. No, actually, it was number. My daughter just. Let me shut that off. So anyway, so we were in the backyard reading comic books, and he pulls out Amazing Spider-Man #4, which was the appearance of Sandman.
Okay.
And I just kind of looked at it and I thought, wow, this is like, DC comic covers didn't look like this. This was just different. And so I really loved it, and I traded him like a lot of comics for that one comic. And that's kind of what got me going with Steve Ditko and Spider-Man. And then,
Okay.
I fell in line and started, I found out about Fantastic Four. Then the Avengers came along, then X-Men. So that's kind of where I started getting excited about learning to draw. Was I would have my comic book and I would find a really good pose that Steve Ditko did, and I would kind of do my version of it. And that's kind of how I learned a little bit of anatomy and stuff like that. And eventually you start drawing your own poses. And so that's kind of how I got started. But really, it was thanks to Spider-Man. And of course, I luckily got to meet Steve Ditko. I went down to
that's
New York.
cool.
I was at a New York Comic-Con, and I went to his office, and I kind of ambushed him coming out of the elevator. But I just wanted to thank him for like inspiring me to this great career that I had. And he was really nice because I was nervous as a cat because I figured, is he going to get real mad at me for stopping him? And I don't want my hero mad at me, But he was very nice, shook my hand, and he was going out to breakfast. And I said, "Could I buy you breakfast?" And he said, "Well, nope." And then just walked off. But it was a big moment in my life to finally meet my big hero that I thought I'd never get to meet.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think always meeting heroes is it's kind of trepidatious because there's the nervousness of meeting them.
Yeah.
And wanting to make sure that you don't put your your foot in your mouth there, or at least if you do, that I hope the foot at least tastes decent because
yeah. Well, and you're hoping you hope number one that they're nice.
Right.
I mean, it'd be nothing worse than bumping, going and meeting him and having him, get really mad at me. And it's like, gosh, that would just crush me, as a big fan. And I've had some moments of that meeting some of my heroes where it didn't work as good as I was hoping. Nothing really bad, just not as good as I was hoping.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been fortunate in that regard. The couple people I've very much looked up to somebody and wanted to go meet them, I've had good positive interchanges with them. Or they, like, for me, one of the most recent ones is I'm a huge hockey fan, Detroit Red Wings, and got an opportunity a couple years back to meet Darren McCarty, and he was just as nice as could be. He's my favorite hockey player. Loved him when he was on the Wings, and got really nervous to meet him, but yeah, couldn't have been any nicer. And he was a great interview as well, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had that same thing with meeting my childhood hero, who was Mickey Mantle, and he was at a local show doing some autographing, and so I put on my Yankee jersey, the mantle on the back,
Nice.
took my book and had him sign everything for me. And again, he was super nice. And in fact, he really wasn't taking photographs, but he was getting up just to go to lunch. And I kind of said, "Could I get a photo with you?" "Yeah, sure." So he comes over, puts his arm around me, and so it was a real good moment,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. So those moments make me think too about when those of us who go to cons, when we get to meet our heroes at cons. And honestly, your career has that really cool perk where you're one of the people want to go to cons to meet. And you go to so many conventions every year, which I think is amazing. But what do you personally enjoy the most about attending these conventions?
Really, it's meeting the fans, because the fans, like I said earlier, that's me. I was the same thing as a kid, and I never had a chance to go meet Bob Clampett or Dawes Butler, the voice of Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear and
Mhm.
Elroy. Man, I would have killed to be able to meet those people, you know. And so, number one, I get to travel, and just meeting the fans is the best part, because I realize that's me on the other side of the table meeting my favorite person, and so it's just real special. And I'm retired, so I don't really have anything to do. So going away on the weekend is really fun. I'm a big baseball fan, so if I ever go to a con in a city that's got a baseball team, I'll plan to come a day early and go see a ball game. And I've had twice when I went
That's
to
cool.
New York for the New York City Comic Con. The wild card game was the same night that I flew in. So I got tickets and went to the wild card game with like the Astros and the Yankees and Oakland and the Yankees one time. So that's an
Oh,
extra
cool.
perk too, you know.
That is a cool perk.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if you're going to travel, you might as well have some extra fun with it. I would do the same thing if it was hockey. So, I'd be going around and checking out all the hockey barns. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, we talked about meeting fans, and so, like with my daughter, she met you at Monroe, and by the way, you couldn't have been nicer to her. Thank you so much for that. She was so excited. She loves She-Ra. I mean, like, loves She-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were at Monroe, I told her, I'm like, so the guy from She-Ra, he's right over there. And she's like, oh my God, where? She had almost gotten her breath back by the time that she found you. So, but you were really cool. It was very nice of you to take that picture with her. And she's, we're framing that picture. She was very excited about it, by the way.
Very nice.
So, so thank you very much for that.
And that's what I like to hear, is that my whole reason for being there meeting people is not to be a jerk. It's to be nice and accommodating. And, people come up and they want a photo, and, some people are charging for photos. And I thought, well, if I charge for photos, nobody will get a photo. So I just said, I said early on, I'm just going to do, if somebody wants a photo of me, I'll do it. I'll do it for free.
Nice. I think that's a cool policy, especially for, when some of the kids come up, or, people who are, I just think that's really cool. So.
And now, a word from our show sponsor, Level Up Sabers. Their link can be found in the show notes.
All right. One of the other things I think is cool about your career, though, Tom, is that you've had the opportunity to play in several different sandboxes. And what I mean by that is that you're not limited to one genre. You've done, Scooby Doo, you've done He-Man, you've done Brave Star, you've done all these different things. Ghostbusters was another one of the ones that you've worked on, and and I know Kathleen's got questions about some other things that you've done later on, so I'm not going to steal the thunder on any of that stuff. But
you're not going to steal the Thundarr on any of
it. Exactly. Yes. But you've had this opportunity to work in all these different things. But for as many wins as you've had in the pop culture world, how hard was it for you as a young man trying to get your start to learn how to accept a no?
Well, it's my career has been one just based on really good luck. I mean, it really had very little to do with me. It had a lot more with me just being at the right place at the right time. The way I was a bus driver, transit bus driver in Los Angeles, and that I didn't want to do that for my career, but it paid really well. I got a lot of hours every week, so I was making pretty good money. And it was the first time that I could almost, not quite, but almost afford to buy a house in LA. I could buy a house elsewhere, but not in Los Angeles. But
Okay.
so I enjoyed driving the bus. The big problem was they made us pick people up, and that kind of ruined the whole thing because it was really difficult. People were really difficult to deal with. So, but
Yeah,
what,
that hasn't changed.
so
So
what happened is, I've told this story a million times, but it just bears repeating because it's just so amazing to me. So I believe it was my day off, and I went out to the mailbox at my apartment to get my mail, and it was just a bunch of junk mail. And normally I come in the door and I just throw it in the trash. Well, today, for some reason, or that day, for some reason, I just threw it on the kitchen table. And, I went over and made a sandwich and sat down to eat it. And I noticed this little pamphlet that came in the mail. And I don't like to just sit there and not do something. So if I've got a newspaper or whatever, a comic, anything, I'll just sit and read while I'm eating. So I grabbed this pamphlet, and it was Cal State Northridge, which is the local college down there in LA. It
mhm.
was their summer schedule for classes they were going to hold during the summer, extension courses. And so I'm flipping through it, and I'm not going to go to college, but I might as well see what they're offering. And I see this comic book class, and I'm thinking, what the heck is this? So I'm reading through the description, and they're basically going to get together, and everybody's going to create a comic book, do all the penciling and inking, creating the characters and everything, write the story, and that's going to be the class. So I thought, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. And since it's only one day a week, I can work my schedule because I always had split days off. I had like either Tuesday and Thursday or Monday and Wednesday. You could never get 2 days off in a row, which I couldn't understand
Mhm.
why, but that's the way it was. So I could get myself to have Tuesday and Thursdays off, and then Tuesday was the class in the evening because I never could have made it. We worked too late every night. I never could have made it to the class. So I just decided to do that. And the teacher was a guy named Don Rico. And Don Rico, I knew from my comic book fandom, that he did Captain America back in the 50s, and he did some of the Daredevil back in the 50s, half red,
Oh wow. Okay.
black. So that made it even more important that I wanted to take this class because I'd finally meet a real comic book artist. And, I never really wanted to be a comic book artist. Thought, boy, I wish I could, but I didn't really think I ever could. But this will be the
Okay.
next closest thing. So anyway, so I took the class, and the first day of the class, he said, next week I want everybody to bring their portfolios in, and while you guys are doing whatever you're doing, I'll go through all your portfolios and give you some tips and stuff like that at the end of the class. So that happens. I bring my portfolio, and as we're getting ready to leave, uh, Don says, "Hey, Tom, could I talk to you for a second?" And I'm thinking, like, what the heck have I done wrong already? It's day 2 of the class. And he said, I work at Hanna-Barbera as a storyboard artist, and all of your drawings were all superheroes. And we're doing Super Friends, Challenge of the Super Friends. So, we're doing Batman, Superman, all these characters that you can draw
Mhm.
really well. And we have a lot of animators that are really good at Fred and Barney and Scooby Doo, but they kind of struggle with the human figures. How would you like it if I recommend you to a class that they teach at Hanna-Barbera that's free if you're recommended by one of the members? And I said, are you kidding me? Of course, I'd love to do that. So I got to go in to meet the guy that was running the class, and he's looking through my portfolio. And this is maybe 5 or 6 days later. And he gets on the phone, and in walks Joe Barbera, and they're kind of looking through my portfolio, and they said, we would hire you right now, except we have no room. All of our desks are full. but we'll put you in the class, and they usually, will hire out of the class if we find good students. And that would be your break. And I said, well, that'd be unbelievable. So I took the class. I did 3 weeks of the class. Didn't really do very well because I really don't know much about animation. And I'm doing my in-between, and I'm trying to draw. My hands all shaky, and the in-between didn't look very good. But on the third week, they announced they're going to hire 4 of us, and I was one of the ones that they were going to hire. And so I told the director, I said, look, I really am not ready. I don't know what I'm doing yet. And he said, don't worry about it. You're going to be sitting with an animator. You'll be his assistant. So I was an assistant animator. And you'll learn through him how to do this. And so that's how I got my job. I mean, I never applied for a job to work at Hanna-Barbera. I just got it. Yeah, so pretty crazy.
That's awesome, though. That's a great way. That's a great way to get a job.
Yeah, that's why the luck thing. Like I'm telling you, if I threw that junk mail away, driving a bus.
Yeah, you wouldn't be here. That's for sure.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Goodness, that is really cool. That is really cool.
Well, that kind of it's cool. It shatters my question, but it's really cool. I like that. So let me ask this as a secondary. Okay, so you've worked on all these different projects. Was there a project that didn't make the cut, that didn't make it to air, that you thought was going to have a possibility? Like like there's TV shows that get pilots. Was there ones that you drew concept art for that you thought had an opportunity to do something and didn't?
No, because usually everything is broken down where you've got, writers, you got storyboard, you got voice artists, you've got layout, you've got animators, you've got assistant animators, you've got ink and paint, you've got cameramen. So all of that is all done in time. So by the time it gets to me, it's already a TV show. They're not going to animate it.
Fair enough.
Unless it's going to be a TV. They might do something. I never worked on anything like this, but there might be something that they would do to kind of pitch to the networks. A quick couple of scenes, just an example of what it would look like. But I'd never been involved in anything like that before. Usually they pitch the show, the network says thumbs up, thumbs down, and then if it's a thumbs up, they just start writing it and we just start working on it. The only thing that ever didn't hit the airwaves was right at the very end. We were doing a sequel to Brave Star that was called Bravo. That was all the little prairie people. So it was based on them. And another show called Bugsburg, which was a bunch of bugs from the Pinocchio movie that we did. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 or 3 episodes done when L'Oreal came in, promised they would keep the studio open, bought the studio, and then promptly closed the studio.
Okay.
So those 3 episodes never saw air. I don't even think they got much past the animation stage.
Okay.
I don't even think they got painted.
Okay. So they're early on in animation. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
All right. Fair enough.
So through all of the projects that you've worked on, so many of those beloved characters have now been turned into action figures and collectibles. And I read in another interview, and I can see behind you, you have a pretty incredible collection of your own. Mm-hmm. So I have a 2-part question on collectibles as well. So how does it feel knowing that these characters that you helped bring to life are now collector's items, that they're cherished items for other people?
It's just, it's impossible to grasp the fact that I've been this fortunate to, I mean, I can remember sitting there, I'm drawing Batman for the Super Friends show. I'm thinking to myself, I'm drawing Batman professionally, and this is going to be on TV. I just couldn't believe it, So I realized what I was doing, but it was just so like an out-of-body experience that what I was drawing was going to end up being on TV. That it was mind-blowing. It just really, of course, I love it. I mean, it was just it's so gratifying to know that He-Man was probably the biggest cartoon hit, like in history. I mean, it sold like 1 billion worth of toys in almost no time.
Mhm.
And it was one of the few things that I worked on that when I would go out to dinner with my friends and stuff like that, or even people that I didn't know, when the topic came around to what do you do for a living, they really didn't understand animator until I said the word He-Man. And then there would be, oh my gosh, my kids love that show. So even people that weren't cartoon people knew about He-Man because all their kids made them buy the toys for Christmas.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it really expanded the number of people that now understood what an animator was. It's kind of like now with, it was, man, in my youth, there were no T-shirts with Spider-Man on it because T-shirts were white.
Mm-hmm.
There was no writing on a T-shirt, and here I am. You've got something. I've got Spider-Man on mine. And everybody's wearing T-shirts with stuff on it. But when I was a kid, we didn't have that. And there were no Comic-Cons. And now even parents that know nothing about comic books know about Comic-Cons.
Right.
And people that never were into cartoons now are into cartoons because the internet and everything has just built it up. So it's really become a Comic-Con has gone from a fun little thing with 20 people showing up to, 200,000 people,
Yeah.
which is New York, it's just, and they all love it. And I love that they love it because it makes the time there so much fun for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid and Ronnie, the kid across the street, got a brand new He-Man, Skeletor, and Battle Cat. I was pissed because I wanted it. I didn't have it. But he had the toys. I mean, his mom and he had all the toys that I wanted to have as a kid. So my mom was always like, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to Ronnie's. He's got, he had all the cool toys." So
yeah.
So the only follow-up to that question that I have is, in your incredible collection, do you have a favorite piece?
Oh man.
It's like asking for a
yeah, back there you can see I've got most of the stuff I've worked on. In fact, you really can't see it, but let me see if I can get out of the way here. But yeah, kind of at the bottom. Let me see if I get my finger pointing the right way. Come on, where are you? Camera. There we are. Right there. That's my animation desk.
okay.
Oh, cool.
That I worked on He-Man.
Oh, neat.
And then the wooden shelves that are kind of right above the desk, those are the shelves I had in my my cubicle. And then above it is just all shelves that I built to hold all my stuff. But I've got a lot of things on there because I just loved all the stuff. It's hard. I wish I was a little closer, but I've got like you heard of Sokies? You know what a Sokie is? Yeah, see, look at this. Look at those question marks in your face. So anyway, the Soki is basically a shampoo bottle, but it was shaped like your favorite character. And then you'd, turn the top off and then use the shampoo and then you would collect them.
Now I know what those are.
Back in there, back up above my right side, I've got like the He-Man Soki, the Skeletor, and I've got a Brave Star Bank. So anytime I saw something that was in a store that I worked on, I usually picked it up. And over my shoulder here, you can see I've got the Super Friends maquettes. I've got the whole gang of them. I've got, even right above my head, I've got Pinky and the Brain. And those are signed by Rob Paulson and Maurice.
Nice.
Those are great. One of the biggest things that I loved myself as a kid was something called Beanie and Cecil.
Okay.
You know what that is?
Nope.
It was a really popular cartoon back in the early 60s.
Okay.
And you could see I've got a, let's see, over here, right there, that picture right there, that is Beanie and Cecil, and it's signed by Bob Clampett, who was the director of all the Looney Tunes, a lot of the Looney Tune cartoons.
Yeah.
One of the creators of Bugs Bunny. He had a Beanie and Cecil puppet show in the 50s that was really popular. And so that's one of the things I love the most in my collection, too, is I got to meet Bob Clampett, who was my favorite director of all those early Warner Brothers cartoons that I love so much. So that's a big one. And I've also got, I think this here is an Iron Man that was drawn by George Tuska. I had him do that for a commission for me.
Ooh.
Nice.
But lots of toys, as you can see. It just
That's
shelves are
excellent.
full.
Well, Tim understands having lots of toys. Tim and
if you saw the front here, if you saw the front in front of me, it's another shelf like the one behind me, and it's got all of the a lot of the statues from the Marvel collection,
Oh, nice.
and a lot of books and other collectibles up there as well. And over against the wall, I've got the full-size He-Man and She-Ra and Skeletor and all the statues.
Oh, cool.
That I saw one on eBay, and I called the company and said, "Do you have any left?" And they said, "You worked on the show?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "We're going to send you every one for free."
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are benefits to have worked on the show. So, yeah, I mean, so my whole room is really just solid collectible stuff. In
That's
this
pretty
corner,
cool.
it's all baseball. So I've got my Mickey Mantle baseball bat and autographed stuff for Mickey Mantle.
Nice.
And so, yes, my wife hates it, but I love it.
Well, there's a reason why all this stuff is here,
Yeah.
instead of
I
at my
understand.
house. You know,
Yeah.
I have a few things at my house, like on my desk at the house. I've got a few Funko Pops and a few coffee mugs and some collectibles and things that I had found over the years, and so I have a few things at home. But I had to move it all here because she didn't want me hanging my Red Wings jersey or my Red Wings goalie mask or my Darth Vader masks, and all that had to come here. So I get it.
Yeah, what I did is when we bought this house 6 years ago, it was, it wasn't built yet. So we just went in and kind of customized it. And what I did is I took our third car garage, and instead of it being garage size, it's like 40 feet long. And that's where I am. I added the air conditioning and heating, like as you can see over here. And it's carpeted. And this is kind of my man cave.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so this is where I've got a big screen TV over here so I can watch baseball because my wife doesn't like baseball. So I spend a lot of my time out here, doing things. And when we have family over, the guys all congregate out here to watch the football game or whatever while they watch whatever they watch in there.
Fair enough. I think I'd be congregating there too. As much as I like sports, I'd probably be like, ooh, yeah, but I get it. All right. So, in a more silly vein, I have a question for you in silliness. So one of the things we like to do when we have somebody come on the show, we always try to make sure that we do our proper amount of research, find out something about them. And I had seen stories about, your bus driving days and some things like that. But I also couldn't help but notice that there's a large number of Thomas Cooks out in the world. And it was kind of funny. I ran across one that was a preacher. There's an airline called Thomas Cook Airline. There's a travel company. Yeah. There was some railroad dude from the 1800s from England. And there's a few other Tom Cooks in the entertainment world as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you ever tried Googling yourself?
Yeah, because I don't come up first.
Right.
Thomas Cook Travel Agency is one of the top ones that comes up.
Yeah.
And of course they just went bankrupt.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. Yeah. I was looking in, I was like, Thomas Cook. I was like, what happened to Thomas Cook Travel Agency? I was reading that. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So what's the silliest thing that you've come across associated with your name when doing your own research?
Well, I don't know if I've seen anything really silly. It's just like you said, you put in a lot of people's names, and that's the only one that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I made my Facebook page, I made it Tom Cook Animator. So if you put that in Facebook, that pops up.
Right.
If I put Tom Cook, you just get this endless list. You never figure out which one to choose, you know? So, but I think my great grandfather was Thomas Cook, and he was in England
Oh,
in the 1800s. So that, you know, maybe he was a railroad guy.
maybe he's
I
the
don't
railroad
know.
guy. Yeah, the businessman. Yeah, maybe
Could
interesting.
be, because we have in my family. Um, my dad's name was Walter. He was an airline pilot for TWA, and his dad just was like, I think, a shoemaker, you know, or I don't know what you call that, but cobbler,
Yeah, the
you know,
cobbler.
whatever
Yeah.
they call them here. Yeah, and that's kind of what he did for a living. And then my grandfather, like I said, was Thomas Cook, and I think both of them were both pretty good artists. And actually, my dad was a fairly good artist too.
Okay.
I remember as a kid, he would make me all these characters, and then I would make comic books of his characters that he created. And so, but I always got, you know, what are you going to do with these stupid cartoons you're drawing all the time? And then I got my job at Hanna-Barbera, and I called my dad and I said, "Hey, Dad, guess what? I just got a job at Hanna-Barbera."
Guess what I'm doing with these stupid
And of course,
cartoons, Dad?
yeah. So he was pretty proud of me,
That's awesome.
but he wanted me to be an airline pilot like he was, and I just didn't want anything to do with that because I wanted to be home with my family for dinner every night,
Okay.
and he wasn't. And it was, I mean, it wasn't a bad childhood. Don't get me wrong;
Sure.
it was a good childhood, but I did miss my dad not being able to come to all my little league games, and he could only come to the ones when he was home
Okay.
Mhm.
because he's gone a week at a time, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Round trip legs. Yeah, I get that.
But yeah,
Okay.
silly stuff. I don't really know anything silly that's come up with my name.
Okay. No, I only asked that because, like I said, I was doing the research and it was silly to me just because of how many Thomas Cooks I went
Yeah.
through. And so I changed it from Thomas to Tom Cook, and that didn't help anything.
Yeah.
And even when I went to IMDb to look at your
Yeah, there's
your
a
links,
couple of them.
there's a couple of them on there, and I had to go to each
Yeah.
one individually to make sure I was looking at the right Tom Cook.
Yeah, they had me listed as Thomas R. Cook, and then for some reason they changed it just to Tom Cook, and then I think it's like Tom Cook number 4.
Yeah.
You know, Roman numeral 4,
Right.
and that's the one that's me. And it kind of says animation or something next to it, so that it's a little bit easier to find. But for a while, it was kind of difficult because there were so many different Thomas Cooks there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot of them out on the interwebs. It's depending on like I said, you could be a preacher, and I think you could pull off a Mission Impossible episode of just all the different people you could be just by being Tom
Yeah.
Cook. It could be interesting. So
It would be.
So Tim had kind of mentioned this earlier, but we talked about how much of an impact your work has had on our childhoods. And I mean, being significantly younger than Tim, I don't have
rude.
I don't have I don't necessarily have the same connection.
Right.
I had to make the dig. I'm sorry. I can't help it. But looking through your incredible list, I got hit with a wave of nostalgia with the Jetsons movie. I
Oh yeah.
absolutely love that movie. I seriously cannot think of the number of times I watched it growing up. And the little grungies are just like, they're my favorite and I love them. And I was looking at pictures of them again today and I'm like, oh man, I need to watch the movie again. I should watch the movie with my daughter. She hasn't seen it yet. Like, it was so fun to me to realize how big of an impact a movie that's over 30 years old has still. So I just wondered how does that feel to know that your work still has that impact on us, that we still want to share it with our kids?
And like I said, I get this every weekend at Comic-Cons because so many people, I mean, you don't realize the impact you have on people until you meet them and they tell you, and it's like, for me, when I was growing up, the Jetsons was the first, I mean, the Flintstones was the first really situation comedy cartoon that was, on in prime time. And I can remember as a little kid, so I was probably about 9 or 10 years old when that came out. And we had this little black and white TV downstairs, and I would turn that on, and I would sit there with my pad of paper. And every time Fred would turn a certain way, I'd draw as much as I could and wait until, because inevitably he'll turn and look sideways again. So then and that's how I learned how to draw Fred. And then the irony is that the very first drawing I ever did at Hanna-Barbera was Fred.
Oh, how cool.
So weird, that I did that. And then I thought, so I got to work on the new Fred and Barney show. So I got to do Fred and Barney. And then when the Jetson movie came up and somebody said, would you like to work on the Jetson movie? I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd get to work on the Jetsons. The Flintstones were so popular that they went on forever. Mm-hmm. But the Jetsons kind of only was one season and kind of disappeared. It just didn't catch on like the Flintstones did. And so when we did the movie, I just, again, same thing. I'm drawing George Jetson right here in this, and it's going to be on the big screen. It's not even going to be on TV. It's going to be on the movie theater screen. And so that was just, phenomenal for me to be able to do that. And then a little bit later on, I worked on in Universal, Florida. There was a Hanna-Barbera ride. And it was kind of one of those flight simulator rides where you're really not going anywhere, but you feel like you're moving because the thing's moving around. And you would pull up in your little car or whatever it was, and Joe and Bill would meet you and say, hey, welcome to Hanna-Barbera ride. And we are here in the studio, and this is how we did a cartoon. So while the ride's going on for the other people, they're entertaining you until it's your turn to go. And so Joe, hey, Joe, why don't you go over and draw a picture? So he'd go over to the desk and he drew Elroy. And then Elroy pops up off the paper and starts flying all around him. Hey, Mr. Hanna. And then Dick Dastardly comes out of nowhere, grabs Elroy and kidnaps him. And now your ride begins and you're going through the Jetson world and Bedrock and all of the mansions of Scooby Doo. And it's all done in 3D, so it looks awesome. I did all the Elroy of that opening sequence, and I had never seen it until I finally found it on YouTube. There's a whole bunch that show the entire ride, but they don't show the opening sequence, and I finally found one that showed the opening sequence. So I finally got to see my work. But, those are just some of the things that pop up. You don't think about them, and next thing you know, you're smack dab in the middle of it again, and just so glad you did it, And thank you for loving the Jetson movie because it was one of the good times.
Yeah, we had it on VHS, and it was in the rotation with me and my sister between that and Goofy movie. Like those were our two go-tos. Were definitely.
I know we did the same thing. We played things over and over and over. I don't know why we watched the same film over and over and over, but we did, and we loved it, And
I think when we didn't have streaming and we only had those limited choices, it was we're going to go with the movie that we know that we love. And exactly. I cannot count the number of times we watched that movie, and I'm pretty sure my mom still has it on VHS. Like, I'm pretty sure she's still got it.
Yeah, a lot of times, I bring a couple copies on DVD, and if somebody decides, hey, I'd like to get that Jetson movie finally, and I'll sign it for them. So it's great.
That's so cool.
That's cool. All right, Tom, we have one final question for you because the rest of our questions have been so serious. We call this one our silly question. So, yeah. And we asked this question of our guests because we think it's a shame that as an adult, nobody asks us anymore, what's our favorite dinosaur? So, Tom Cook, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Come on, it's not even a question. Next question, please. T-Rex.
Tom, thank you so much for being on our show with us tonight. Where can our viewers and our listeners go to find out more about you and your work?
Well, you can always follow me, like I said, on Facebook at Tom Cook Animator. I usually pop up. Follow me, and if you want to be able to send me messages, just, message me and I'll message back. So you can, I get a lot of commissions and stuff like that from people that want to get something from me. They can't get out to the cons. And usually on my Facebook page, a couple weeks before, I'll announce where I'm going to be, and that way they can kind of get ready to come and see me at the shows or whatever. And I mean, I've had people. I was in Phoenix one time, and somebody came from Alabama. They drove all the way from Alabama to Phoenix because not only was I there, the voice of Skeletor and the voice of She-Ra.
Oh,
So
wow.
he said, I've got to come to that. So they came all that way and got, everything they had practically autographed by all three of us. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing. And and really I don't do a lot of social media other than that. I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use it. It's basically Facebook that I use, and not really too much beyond telling people what I'm going to be doing and when.
Okay.
Well, we will definitely link your Facebook so that they can go and find out which con is closest. Because
and anybody wants a commission, like I said, they can just message me and tell me what they'd like, and I could do something for them and autograph it and everything for them, and it's really kind of cool.
that
Excellent.
is really cool.
All right. Well, guys, I want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help our show to continue to grow. And we get more amazing guests like Tom Cook here today, who's one of the many variants of Tom Cook that you'll find out on the internet. But you have all these awesome opportunities to be able to listen to Tom and hear these stories. And yeah, it's just really cool. This has been a joy for me. So guys, please subscribe. It helps us well more than we can even begin to tell you. And go check out Tom on Facebook. He's got some cool stuff going there. And yeah, if you're a big fan of 80s animation like I am, it's definitely something you want to check out. And if you can go check him out at a con, he's got a lot of cool stuff at his table. When we saw him at Monroe Pops, I wish I would have had more money there because there were some things that I need to get. So Tom and I will probably be talking soon. But if for whatever reason you are not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department. His name is Skeletor. Skeletor is a little on edge to begin with because he's lost all of his face skin, and the castle he wants to live in is lived in by a dude with hairy underoos. So take that into consideration when you submit your one single complaint form. There's no telling who will bear the brunt of his annoyance. Most likely, it's going to be us. And we know that. But it could be you. And once he's annoyed, well, you just can't tell. There's no facial muscles there. He can't give you a smile or a frown. But you will know if he pulls out the sword.
We're so doomed.
Well, thanks so much, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I always enjoy doing this. So it's nice meeting you guys. And hopefully I'll see you at the next con I'm at. Now in Monroe, I'm hoping I'll come back. It was a pretty good show. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we hope
people
you do
were
too.
real nice.
Yeah, they're a great group of people down there, for sure.
Guys,
Yeah.
take care and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for the FSF Popcast. Goodbye.
Copyright 2023 FSF Popcast.
Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Popcast. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpopcast.com. Original music by Jordan Michaels.